Shanti, Shanti. So, having seen from the standpoint of Yaj, Yaj is to connect. How does one connect to the universe? So, we connect to the universe through source of inspiration, and who gives us source of inspiration. Okay, so there we saw that the sattvic qualities will naturally get attracted to devatas, when I connect to the universe by seeing the presence of that one reality which manifests in different forms. The Rajasic are one track. They see something that they are attracted to, and that becomes their primary goal, and people who seem to have that achievement, they become the role models. Okay? And Tamasic people are the ones who are actually engaged in connecting to the world in a way that you can, in fact, sometimes don't even hesitate to harm somebody, okay, out of your own pressures, okay, and to spirits which are which is unfruitful, which is futile, okay, that connection is futile. There, Alka asked me a very important question. This is a very important question, right? After the class, she told me that we, at least in the Hindus, we do this ceremony called Shraddha. Okay, so she says, how does it fit into that? That's a very good question. Okay, now what happens is, when a person, you have to know what it is. Whether you do it or not is one thing, but you must know what it is, right? When a person leaves the physical body, okay, so what, according to our vision, the person then is supposed to, that prarabdha, the time here on this earth with this people is over. Okay, so therefore, according to one's what we have seen earlier, the unseen karma, okay, they are still there. So how will you experience the results of unseen karma? Through taking on different bodies. Without that, that experience is not possible. So you need to take another body to experience the result of unseen, right? The results of your own actions. Okay, so this is what happens. So there is a transition from taking one body to the other. That body could be on earth or anywhere else in the universe, right? The universe is so huge, it is too presumptuous to think that it's only earth which sustains life. Okay, there are multiple galaxies, okay, and there is possibility of life. So that means you can take a form anywhere else in this universe. Okay, so when a person passes away, generally what happens is, there is a tendency for the person to stay on even though the person is out of physical body. Why? Because all the connections are there, right? All the attachments, so-called, people that you love, okay, things that you would have liked to do, things you would have liked to see, all those things are still connecting you to this earth at this point in time, but actually, in terms of the body with which you are supposed to engage in this world, the time is over. Okay? So during this 13-day ceremony, what are we doing? We are making that process of transition easy. In fact, it's all meant for that person to go. The whole ritual is meant for person, not because the time here is over, right? So you go and you take on different bodies according to whatever different things that are to be experienced. Okay, so it is that facilitating that transition. Okay, so this is what we do the 13 years, right? After these 13 days are over, every year we do Shraddha. Okay, so what do we do in that? What we are doing is we are connecting to our ancestors. Okay, what are we doing? We are, just as I'm recognizing the contribution of sun to my life, we are recognizing their contribution in our life. Okay, whatever we are today, as a cause and effect relationship is, what my parents are is because of the values they carry, is because of the values that their parents carried. Okay, so that means that who I am and the kind of values I hold is not independent of the ancestries. Okay, so that is another way of, things can remain in the idea. The more you concretize what is in the idea, do you live more fully. Okay, so that Shraddha ceremony is where you offer your thanks. Okay, so that is a very sattvic thing. Okay, now that spirit connection is different from Shraddha. You have to understand that, right? What are you doing with spirit? Some unknown spirits you are trying to contact, and for what?
For your personal,
God knows what, some information that you want for, what's going to happen to my son, is he going to get married or not, or some crazy things, right? So these are the kind of frivolous engagement in some things which is like completely pointless, right? And who are those spirits, why they are, it's dangerous. Okay, so therefore that is very different from here. It is a ceremony which is, you're not contacting your ancestors to say, now okay, now you do this for me and you do that for me. You're contacting them to offer your respect,
gratitude,
your gratitude. Okay,
and so their well-being, we don't know, they might also need prayers for their well-being.
Absolutely.
Or to make another transition if they're still hanging around.
Absolutely. In fact, they say that if you do those, absolutely,
13 days,
13 days, and
you
really actually help the process. And so this is the thing that, and in case, then also you are helping through your own prayers for them to move on. Okay, so this is something which is a constructive engagement, right? Whereas just random contacting for your little information is not considered tamasic.
And people do have unfortunate
so that
experiences.
was a very good question, because that we have to make sense of that.
So when we think of our ancestors,
Yes.
is it like because then we also have that reincarnation idea, right? So then, did that soul then eventually go to another body, which we don't know, but
you're
we're still thanking
them,
he may be over here on the fly, but
true.
he was our great grandfather. Like
Absolutely. That connection is something which remains. As you say, right now, let's say that Pitru, that great grandfather, may have taken reincarnation and could be a baby somewhere, right, in Haryana or whatever. Right?
And you're praying for that person.
You're praying for that person,
also,
but you're also
right?
that connection you had with that jiva as your grandfather while you're living in this life doesn't go away when that person has taken another body. Right? So that connection still remains. And that person as the grandfather had a contribution through your father to make you who you are. Right? So that you pay respects. So that means wherever that soul is, that respects will go. Okay? This is where you see that whole interconnectedness, when you understand the interconnectivity, otherwise it remains an idea. Now you begin to see, my God, how, it really is true in so many different levels. So many different levels.
My depth of understanding of this is not as deep as yours. But I'll tell you one thing, that now even if I kill a fly, I pray for its soul and I ask its forgiveness. Because sometimes when you have something that's, like a cockroach, you don't really want it running around. You have to destroy it. But I do, say,
Wonderful.
Then
That
going on to
amount-
the next life, I ask for forgiveness for having taken yours. May you be united with the universe, the Creator. That's it. But
That's
I would,
wonderful.
I would have never done it earlier. Never.
Mm.
In my youth, I would have never thought of it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
This is that sensitivity that
Yeah.
you develop.
Yeah.
Right? So this is very nice. I'm happy to hear that. Okay. So this is something. Now the next thing of the sattva, rajas and tamas comes through what we call tapas. Okay. Now generally the idea of you think that tapas is a good thing to do. Okay. So let's first understand what is tapas and what is the idea behind it. Okay. Tapas is any kind of self-discipline or certain austerity that you impose. It's self-imposed, right? Not imposed by anybody else. Okay, for your own growth. Okay, so generally what happens is when you engage in a world, we are quite impulsive. Okay, so we very often operate on our instincts. Okay, so that means say I'm angry, then what do? I shout. Okay, if I'm sad, what do? I just cry, and then sometimes I get into this self-destructive mode of saying, "Oh, pity me," and then I get into depression. These are all not healthy for me, right? Then when I have jealousy, what do?
Well, what do jealous people do? They generally sit and malign you with other
Bitch
people.
about them.
Exactly, right? So that means not only there is a feeling, there is a whole the personal free will gets along with it, and it translates into actions.
Actions, yeah.
Right? So that means this is how the tendency of everyone is in some ways. Okay? Now how do you become a person who doesn't, we are not trying to stop emotions, because emotions, if I ask you tomorrow how you are going to feel, are you going to know exactly how you are going to feel? No. Okay? So therefore we are not here trying to control the emotions or anything. What we are trying to do is that make sure that you have mastery over emotion. Okay, what does it mean? That maybe the anger has come, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to shout. That feeling, immediately there is an action following it, where I use my I lose my capacity to discriminate and say, is this an appropriate action or not? Okay? That spontaneous reaction that I have, which is a result of certain mental feelings or understanding that I have, that needs to be checked. Okay? So therefore, I may feel sad at some given point in time, but what happens in depression? If sadness is one thought, do you call it depression?
No.
No. So what happens in between where a sadness culminates into depression?
When you refuse to recognize the sadness and continue to wallow in it.
Exactly. That means you dwell on that sadness, you give it more reality, more reality. This is what we call a tendency that we have, that one standpoint I take to life and I build up. I build up and I create a huge picture for myself. Within that picture, what happens? I feel miserable. Okay? So this is what we call depression.
I totally understand what you mean
Yeah.
about the building up the
Yeah.
image of how
Image
things
of-
are and
yeah.
letting it overwhelm you. But I do think we understand now depression as an illness, that sometimes people are perfectly happy, it happens to them. So then
That's
I think
Well, it may happen, but the thing is that there are a lot of things which are unaddressed. Otherwise,
No doubt.
yeah.
But-
So that means something is lying in you which is little bit unaddressed, okay? Which is then you need to address at a given point in time, okay? So now, tapas is that which enables you to be more deliberate in action, okay? So that means that impulsive nature of ours is checked through tapas. So one very important tapas is what we call vak tapas. Vak tapas is speech. Okay? Generally what happens is, in our speech, okay, when we say things, how we say things, the manner in which we say, okay, ends up hurting people without our intentions, right? Very often you're doing something very, very innocently, right? But it has a totally different impact on somebody else.
Because they analyze it differently.
They
receive it
take,
differently.
so that means there is some insensitivity on our part where we just are operating from what my intentions are. We don't incorporate the other person, where that person is coming from, and the impact our words are going to have on that other person. Okay, so that means you're viewing a situation, but the totality, you're not viewing the situation in its totality, partially. Partially, it's that you're not just doing things that are totally out of any understanding or whatever, but it's a partial understanding. Okay, so Vak Tapas starts with incorporating not only my intentions, but what the other person who's involved. Okay, the other person who's involved, and how, as much as possible, okay, I try not to hurt anybody else. Okay, so this is what we say, we become conscious of what we speak. Sometimes we do things very, you tell people, oh, I don't like your dress. Is there any need to say that?
No.
No, right? You may have preference, and that's okay, right? Yeah. But what is the gain? What are you gaining by just making this kind of a frivolous remark? Okay. You
so
only...
Can I just ask you, just again for this example of the dress, I wouldn't outrightly go and say, okay, I don't like what you're wearing, but if the person comes to me and says, how do you like it? Now, do I lie and say, no, it's fine? Or do I say, I don't like it? Or how do you go about it?
That's a very good question, right? Now, here, one thing, the situation is very different. The person has asked for your opinion. Very different, right? You're not just going and throwing your ideas and things on people, right? So, with reference to any any practice that you start for disciplining yourself, that self-denial in any given thing at times becomes highly, what happens, you deny yourself so much, then what happens? Everything gets all pressured, and then what? It all just comes out. Okay? So that means any austerity which is just self-denial without nurturing yourself and understanding the meaning and using it wisely will become actually a potential bomb which will explode. Okay? Yeah.
What if you are not able to practice self-denial?
Self-denial at all, if you, the thing is
like
that...
for example, you know something, to avoid something would be beneficial, and yet you have an attachment to that thing, so then you... Got any tips?
So, the thing is, you have to give me a concrete example, because otherwise it becomes difficult to analyze it,
Maybe later.
Okay. Okay. So because when it is a concrete thing, then we can look into it and see how. But otherwise, see, generally, nobody wants to deliberately harm oneself. Right? So when I ask this question that, why would you not act on? Generally what happens is, there is this feeling of jealousy, okay? And then you act on that feeling of jealousy by doing what? Maligning that other person or whatever. Then when would you stop it?
Best would be if you didn't feel that way,
but if it happens, right, that's the thing, right? So when it happens, what you need to do is, now, let's examine, Instead of denying it, saying, oh, I should not be
Yeah.
jealous because a spiritual person should not be jealous or an
Right.
evolved person should not be jealous, just stay with that feeling because it's come,
Come here.
right? You have not invited it, but it has come.
Come here.
So now, instead of shooing it aside, saying that the good people don't feel jealous, right? Or just being unaware of it and let just, malign the other person as a result of it, just stay with this feeling of jealousy. Let's sit in this feeling of jealousy. So now you see what's happening. Okay? So what is the dynamic? We have to stay with it and we have to understand. Okay? Now what is it that why are you jealous of any other person? Why?
They have something you don't have.
Exactly.
Because what?
In fact,
What did you say?
They have something you don't have.
but there is one more
Self-
condition. Okay?
self-
There are so many people, they may have something that you don't have, but you're not jealous of all of them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right? So why you're jealous towards only few people and not all? Why? So you have
It's
to
a
add
personal
one more
connection.
condition. Okay? They have something that you don't have that you value.
Yeah.
Okay? If somebody is extremely rich, but you don't really have much, that ambition to be that rich, then you don't envy that person. But if you want to be the best, whatever, dancer, right? But if you find somebody else is doing that, then what? Right? So that means that the other person has many things that you don't have, but you don't care.
Yeah.
But if you want to be a good
Value
painter, or you want to be, let's say, first in the class,
Yeah.
whatever, in whichever way,
Way.
okay, then that means you have value for something, okay, and you feel that what you value, somebody else has
Yeah.
more than what you
You
have,
have, yeah.
right? This is the implicit thing which is going on, which produces this jealousy, because I value it, I want it, but I find myself lacking it, and I find somebody else having it. Right? Now, what do? Now, you go back and you said, what is your real interest? Your real interest is in having it. Right? That's what you really want.
Yeah.
Okay? So that is the goal. If you really want it, okay, then the jealousy, will it help you to get what you want?
No?
Is it going to help you in any way? Is it self-enhancing? It is going to put you closer to the goal that you want to reach? No. When you understand that it is not self-enhancing for me at all. Okay? It actually, not only it is not self-enhancing, it does not help me in getting what I really want. But it actually, if I start maligning the person, then what? I'm adding further distortions which will keep me further away from what I really want to do. Because I'm using my energy not in actually getting the things that I want, not making an effort towards what I want to achieve, but I'm wasting away my mental power in maligning somebody else, which is creating a conflict in me.
Okay, so in that vein, let's say you're jealous of somebody because they're quite similar to you and you want what they have, and then you say, okay, no point in being jealous, and you go for it. So is it okay? There's a sort of competitiveness in that, or like they inspire me to.
Exactly.
That's okay.
That's okay. They inspire you because you are, any desire that you have it as a result of seeing the world, right? You see the world, you see people having something that creates desire in you, and there is nothing wrong in it. Okay, there is nothing wrong in it. Okay, but if that is, and then you have all the right in the world to go for that desire and do whatever you can to fulfill that desire. Okay, so but that feeling of jealousy will not actually enable you to. It is kind of destructive way of using your energies. Once you understand that, you are helping yourself, right? Because those feelings will take you further away from where you want to go, rather than help you to go where you want to go. That means you are helping yourself. It's not that oh, now Vedanta says I should not be jealous, so therefore I should not be jealous. Not at all. Just understand the dynamic of what is happening and see how you are working against yourself by giving strength to certain feelings. When you see that clearly, who wants to act against self interest? Nobody wants to, deliberately. This is how very tactfully you take care of all these distorted emotions that we all have. There is not one person who doesn't have some distortion of the other in one area or the other. The whole skill of life is what? To recognize it without shooing it away as, oh, no, and then what? You convert it. Yeah? Use your thinking capacity to what? Channel it in a way that is self-enhancing for you. Your engagement in the world becomes more meaningful, more pleasurable. You become more cheerful, more proactive, more enthusiastic, rather than being bogged down by all these feeling of self-pity, feeling of being victim. Okay, so all these visions or these constructs you have to destroy. I mean, destroy in the sense that take care of. Right? So this is what we say, that any tapas is something which is a self-discipline done, initiated to bring about more deliberateness and less impulsivity. But if you don't do it with a proper intention, then it can become rajasic or it can become even tamasic. Okay? Now, there is the other thing which is the next verse. I think I can do. Which is now about food. Okay? So now the food that you eat. Which is really the time, that is a good time to discuss the food, which is the lunch time.
Tell
right?
something about more about sattvic tapas.
Food, yeah.
Sattvic.
Tapas.
Tapas.
Sattvic tapas.
Sattvic tapas? Sattvic tapas, as I said, that this vak tapas, that being deliberate, okay, or fasting that I do, okay, or any time, for example, any tapas where I said I have feeling of jealousy, but I don't go along with it. What does it mean? I have used my capacity to check myself not to go along with that emotion which has come, okay, and give it a strength by re-understanding the situation and then saying, no, this is self-destructive, I'm not going to do it. So that is self-discipline. It requires a certain deliberate effort and intervention on my part to do things differently than what my habit is. That is tapas. Right? Because my impulsive nature, my impulse will tell me what? Do it. Exactly.
So it's not just
wait,
performing
So
a
it is
function.
check. When you check that impulsiveness, this is why you have to develop that capacity. The first time you may not be able to do it, but if you are deliberate and your intention is that I can't engage in the world just based on this instinct, I have to base my interaction out of my understanding, then next time or even next time you will be able to intervene. Okay? And this is how you bring about a change. Otherwise, it is repeated effort and alertness. Okay? So this is what happens. Then let's say if you're feeling very angry, what happens in the anger?
Lash out at someone else.
You just lash out on people, you say things which are hurtful, or sometimes people get physical, all kinds of things can happen when people are in the hold of anger. So what is tapas?
Is to recognize you're getting angry and to back off.
Exactly, right? The anger has come without your permission. If I tell you, Alka, now you get angry.
You won't get angry.
Will you begin? She's very calmly looking at me. And then she's saying yes, right? And she's even laughing, you see. So that means, does that mean that Alka has never got angry in her life? She's incapable of getting angry?
No, it does not
No.
mean that.
What does it mean? that anger doesn't come with your permission.
Yeah.
Right? It just comes.
Mm.
Situations trigger that anger, the emotion of anger. Okay? Now, that anger has come. Now, what is tapas? If I generally, that feeling has come and I act on it almost impulsively. Okay? My capacity to check that action. Okay? It has come at the level of feeling, but at the level of my action, I need not just translate it into something which will hurt others.
Tapas will be counting up till 10. before you
Tapas will
said
be
anything.
absolutely. Tapas is, you, in the short run, in fact, you can tell the person, I'm angry now. I don't want to discuss.
Yeah.
I'm not in a mode to discuss because I'm having this feeling that at this time I'm not lucid enough to discuss that given matter. You're honest. You're saying, acknowledging your anger, but you're not acting impulsively based on your anger. But in the long run, you need to also understand why that anger is coming. Okay? There is something that is triggering the viewing, that external stimuli is there, but you are viewing it in a way that produces, the other person has probably gone, if you put the same person, the other person in the same situation, that person may not get angry at all. So that means there is some interpretation which has gone on with reference to the external situation which has produced that anger. Okay? So that means you need to look into that anger. Where is it coming from? I'll just give you a real life example, okay, of what happened. There was this person who came to us, and he was an executive in a big firm, and a very senior person, and he says, I really get angry with people when I'm entering into a discussion with somebody. Then when they don't agree with what I say, okay, I just lose it, okay. And he realizes that it is terrible because I asked him, so you mean to say that everybody will hold the same opinion as you and agree with you on everything that you have to say? Obviously not. He knows that it is not. But when a situation happens that the person doesn't agree, he just starts boiling. Okay? So then we started talking over a period of time, and then in our conversation, actually it was amazing. We realized, he himself figured out, because I don't know about his life, only he knows about his life, right? So in that process of conversation, I figured that that person, when he was young, he wanted to be a cricketer, okay? And you know how mostly Indian parents are, that they are so afraid at that time, this is about 20-30 years ago.
If you're not earning.
Okay, that they said, oh, but if you don't make it to the national team, then what will you do? Your whole life will be wasted. So they pushed that person into becoming an IT professional. Okay, saying that, oh, there's security and this and that, right? Now the person really wants something, teenage years, 16, 17, he is pushed by the parents to do something totally different. Okay, the parents in their vision are acting for what? Destroying him? No.
For
It is for his own good. In their vision, his own good. Right? Now, the person has become an IT professional and he is doing really well now. Okay? But now, every time somebody disagrees with him, what is exactly? That you really want to do something and somebody is saying something else. Okay? That mind has, it reproduces that impression, and there is a total reaction. Okay, but once you understand the dynamics of what is happening, then what do? You channel it differently. Okay, so next time you are more aware. When you are more aware of what is happening, then you are not actually sucked into it. Okay, because you are now understanding what is happening. Before you had not examined it, you don't even know what's happening. It just happens. Okay, then what he started doing is that making more effort to see that situation as it is without coloring it with his own impressions. Okay. The second thing he started doing is he started teaching in the club. He became a cricket coach. That is giving some expression to his expressed, unfulfilled desires. Okay, that's a constructive use. Okay, this is again a tapas. Tapas means you try to curtail your tendency to be impulsive and use your intelligence to channel your thinking in a way that you are not destroyed.